Hello everyone and welcome to my ACSA end of the year project for summer 2023. My name is Wendy Soto and I am a future administrator. So my objectives for this presentation are the 11 shown on the screen. I'm going to review Cycle 1, Cycle 2, and Cycle 3 of the Cal APA. I'm going to discuss the integration of leadership frameworks into my work now and into the future. I'm going to also share integration of a minimum of 2 leadership texts from the program. I'm going to explain my personal leadership implications and what I would do if I was the bottom line. I'm going to present 3 major discoveries I made during this process and 3 major questions I have moving forward. Also presented will be leadership challenges that I see are inherent in this process. I will also provide a summative statement, and I will end my presentation with my review of paying it forward specific to 3 potential candidates for next year's cohort. To begin, my experience with the Cal APA cycles. So in Cycle 1, I dove into a data and qualitative overview of a school. I focused on Costin Elementary, specifically on their LPAC scores. In Cycle 2, problem of practice being addressed. It was difficult and challenging for me to find a site-based PLC to work with while assigned to a district position, and working within a new team that I didn't really belong to was difficult. Cycle 3, what are the current results and implications moving forward? Based on Cycle 3, I'm going to integrate this model that I used in Cycle 3 based on Cal APA's rubrics into my coaching sessions with my resident teachers. So Cycle 1, as I stated, the focus was on Costin Elementary. Over on the right, you can see their enrollment demographics from 2017 to 2018. And then also off to the right, you can see their LPAC scores. And I also have their enrollment demographical data from 2018 to 2019. What's interesting is from one year to the next, while in the 17-18 school year, only 11.7% of their students were ELs, and but they were able to achieve a 26.87 score overall. And then their numbers of English language learners dropped to 9.8 from 2018 to 19. And unfortunately, so did their rate of proficiency. So it's just very interesting to dig into that and to look at it across grade levels and conduct research. I also interviewed the principal, who's presently the principal there at Costin, who wasn't the principal back then, but she did discuss with me her goals for how she wants to grow their ELL program and supports across all grade levels at her site. So my experience with Cycle 2. As I already stated, I did experience some challenges over here on the right. I actually reside over at our district office in the Human Resources Department. That is my division where my program is coordinated out of. And I did find it difficult to be able to get together with scheduling that matched my scheduling so that I could work with a PLC. I did choose a PLC at Costin Elementary, and something that I did not recognize at the time of planning and setting up those initial meetings was their early release Wednesdays and how that was going to conflict with my 2 to 4 p.m. meetings that I have with the Graduate School of Education that we work with for the program. I could not get out of my mandatory meetings with the graduate school, and so that continued to cause some conflicts of scheduling. And unfortunately, it just didn't end up taking place. And so now I'm regrouping, setting up, and planning Cycle 2 to take place at the beginning of the fall. And I'm going to do that before my mandatory meetings get started. So I'm going to meet with this team during the non-student days at the beginning of the school year, and then meet with them a couple of times as we move forward into our first triad. So my experience with Cal APA Cycle 3 was actually pretty successful. What are the current results and implications moving forward? As I stated earlier, I will integrate this model into my coaching sessions with my resident teachers. And here are some clips of videos. The first on the left is the first video, lesson debrief. So this was what we debriefed afterwards, and we talked about all the things and all the areas where she glowed and growed and the strategies that she planned to implement. And this teacher did a great job. But after reviewing the conversations and the notes from our meetings, She implemented different strategies with the same group of students. And so over off to the right is the second video. And so I just wanted to share. So if you had the time to look at it later, you can take a look to see what the differences were between the video on the left and the video on the right.
Repeat the word.
So now I'm going to transition to integration of leadership frameworks. The first is the ladder of inference. This really supported my ability to pause and reflect on which rung I am operating from, to consider the assumptions I'm making about the situation without data to support my beliefs. This was a very big growth component for me this year. The next was the 4 agreements in the leadership frameworks. My words. They have power and influence, and I need to understand that people remember what I say and how those words made them feel. And then the leadership standards. Expectations are necessary to keep us on track. I cannot preach a message of transparency and accountability if I am not holding myself accountable to leadership standards. And over off to the right is an image of me in one of my resident seminars that we would hold on Thursdays, well, that we will continue to with our next cohort. But there's me leading one of our seminar sessions, and those runs from 8:30 to 5 o'clock. So it's a long day. 2 leadership texts that helped me to bring theory to practice. The first was Glenn Singleton's book. I really enjoyed going through this with Dr. Taylor. And the quote that stood out to me from Singleton's book was, "Equity is not a guarantee that all students will succeed. Rather, it assures that all students will have the opportunity and support necessary to succeed." And that was found on page 60 of my 3rd edition. And the next text that became my Bible for this program, so as I was preaching teaching performance expectations, TPEs, to my resident teachers, I was also following and aligning my work to the CSPLs. Personal leadership implications. So the first is taking a risk to build a new district program is what leaders have to be ready to do. So I would say that this leadership implication for myself was just knowing when and how to take that risk and how to go about it and how to build a team so that it's sustainable, how to collect data, how to monitor progress, to actually, again, like I just stated, to monitor the sustainability of the program and to see if it's worth it and if it's actually helping students, if it's improving student outcomes. And I would associate this with CSPL 1A1, advanced support for academic, linguistic, cultural, social, emotional, behavioral, and physical development of each learner. And in my case, each learner isn't necessarily only our K-12 students, but it's actually the 40 graduate students that are in the teacher residency program. The second personal leadership implication is just a commitment and the loyalty that's required to just stay in the game. It's tough and challenging. It is a tough and challenging path, but my community deserves better leaders. So as an educational leader in Hemet Unified, I really think a lot about staying in and becoming who I need to be for my community where I live. And I connect this to CSPL 2A4, strengthen staff trust, shared responsibility, and leadership by instituting structures and processes that promote collaborative inquiry and problem solving. And on the right is my third, professional leadership growth impacts my personal leadership growth. And I connect this to CSPL 5A2, reflect on areas for improvement and take responsibility for change and growth. And I would say this impacts me on a personal level because it's helped me actually in my roles as wife and mom. You know, in my family, I have 3 grown children, and our relationships now that they're older and on their own are different from when they were kids. And so just building this capacity in my professional life has actually helped me to know how to navigate this new area of having adult children. And the question was asked, what would I do if I was the bottom line? And it's an interesting question because I kind of feel like I'm always the bottom line. And so in just thinking about this, I guess what would I do is what I do. Just look around, look for people that have the same mindset, look for people to encourage, look for people to build their capacity and build a team and move forward. I just kind of always look at myself, I guess, as the bottom line, and then looking around for others to pull in to move us forward and up the line, I guess, to get stuff done. And I would say that a lot of this comes from my role as wife and mom. When I think about that, of all of the leadership implications, I think just that being at the core of my values and what's important to me in my life really actually does sustain me and keeps me just looking up from the bottom line. 3 major discoveries. The first was I have way more leadership experience than I thought I did, and I'm an asset to my district. So that was interesting in thinking about that, which has actually encouraged me, as I said, to stay in and to see what opportunities will make themselves available in my district and how I can support the community that I've been working with for so long. The second discovery I made was that there have been select leaders and mentors in my district that were pivotal in growing my leadership skills. They let me try and they let me fail forward. And I'm very, very grateful for the opportunities that they provided to me to allow me to kind of see behind the curtain and see how things operated and what was necessary. It really did prepare me for thinking about being an administrator. The third one is really discovering that K-12 public school administration is no joke. It is going to be harder and lonelier than I had imagined. As I'm at the district office and I see the work, the time commitment that is required of district level leadership, I'm so impressed. And I visit the sites to do my observations and to interact with the mentors, the residents, the principals. When I sit down to speak with the principals and the assistant principals, I'm just see leadership is like I said, it's no joke. It's going to be hard, and sometimes it's going to be lonely, but it's going to be worth it because I see people that are very committed to doing what's best for children, and I know that's also what I want to do and what I want to pursue. So 3 major questions. My first question was, what happens next? Thinking about future communications with ACSA, and I'm also wondering about who our ongoing contact person is going to be. Wanting to make sure that I keep, these professional relationships going with people that have gone on before me and know what they're doing for the most part, right? That can answer my questions and hopefully provide advice and guidance in the future. And I think it's really important too to have those connections outside of my district. I think that's going to be a great support to me. So I guess that's my first question. What happens next? The second question is about this. Is work-life balance even possible? We heard a lot about work-life balance, but as I look around and hear from administrators and educational leaders in my district, I see that balance may be a healthy aspirational goal, but not necessarily reality. And not to say that I have to go overboard and not have a balance or not pursue a balance, but I do think that I definitely don't want to give myself a hard time and experience some incredible amount of guilt because maybe I'm not living up to somebody else's expectations for balancing my life. And so I'm hoping that I'll begin to better understand this. But I guess that is a question. Is work-life balance even possible? My third question is, do we get extra time to finish? I really hope so. My life is no more busier than others. It would be arrogant for me to believe that was the truth. Yet, the reality for me is that I have items left to complete, specifically cycle 2. Yet, I'm hoping for extra time in the summer to complete that missing assignment. I know that really won't happen until the beginning of the fall, but yeah, just wanting to know if we have extra time to finish. So now moving on to 4 leadership challenges that I believe are inherent in this process of leadership. The first is study the data. This challenge is a reality, and I actually enjoy analyzing data, but what I need to do is not only study the data, but figure out a way to share that data with other people in ways where it's not offensive and understandable. So I connect this to CIPSL 2C. Leaders develop and use accountability systems to monitor, improve, and extend educator practice, program outcomes, and student learning. And the other part of this studying data process is, I think, really leaning into research. So presently, I'm also working on my doctoral degree. Hopefully, it'll be finished by March 2024, so it's just around the corner. But what I'm finding is that it is really important for me to continue to extend my educator practice by leaning into research, collecting data, and turning around and presenting that, not just to my peers, but to just to my teams, and just having that ability and flexibility to be able to do that. and look at student program outcomes and really focus on what's best for student and student learning. I would say the second leadership challenge inherent in this process is that to understand and accept the fact that change takes time. And I connect this to CPSL 4A. Leaders meaningfully involve all parents and families, including underrepresented communities in student learning and program supports. You know, it takes time to change things, and I really understand that even now, moving into my third year of coordinating the program, the teacher residency program for my district, and wanting to impact the greater district with a more of a focus on building diversity, equity, and inclusion for our students, and understanding that that's going to take time. And I think, though, that I really believe that the program that I'm coordinating is leading to that change, but nonetheless, I do have to stop and take pauses at times and just understand that change will take time in my district. The third is leaning in and taking risks, and I connect this to CPSL 2A. Leaders promote a culture in which staff engage in individual and collective professional learning that results in their continuous improvement and high performance. So I just really look at this. It's about taking risks, not stupid risks, but smart, calculated, and strategic risk to do what's needed to support kids, all kids. And the fourth is this whole challenge of managing up, and I connect this to CPSL 5C. Leaders recognize and use their professional influence with staff and the community to develop a climate of trust, mutual respect, and honest communication necessary to consistently make fair and equitable decisions on behalf of students. So here I really thought a lot about the whole idea, and what I've observed too at the district, even at my level of program coordination, is that there are times when I would say that it is kind of managing up. I have to present data, I have to teach, and I have to instruct people above me on what's actually happening in my program. And so I would say just having that flexibility to not only manage down and to the right and to the left, but also managing up and using that influence with staff to build community, to build the trust that's necessary, and get things moving forward on behalf of our kids. All right. Here, I will discuss my summative statement, developmental continuum of practice. So over on the left is a table that I located in West Ed's Moving Leadership Standards into Everyday Work. Back when I first started looking through the pamphlet, or I loved it. Like I said earlier in the presentation, to me it was like my Bible, and so I referenced it often. But on the left, on page 3, is this really great little table of information, and I love that it shows that we need to move from awareness to implementation, from being reactive to proactive, basic to complex, being an individual, having individual dreams, visions, and mission to shared vision, moving from incidental to strategic, moving from independent to systemic, and moving from compliant to innovative. So over on the right, I start off with the West Ed table on the left illustrates the trajectory of my continued growth as an educational leader. While I cannot say that I've completely transitioned from each behavior on the left to the right, I am more aware than ever of my blind spots and areas for continued growth. As I consider the areas that provide continued opportunities for growth, I also recognize the areas where I already glow. Being strategic in my planning and preparation for my role as a program coordinator will continue to benefit me as a future administrator. My natural inclination to be innovative after demonstrating compliance helps me build credibility with my colleagues and district leadership. And to me, this is reflective of how I respond to K-12 students. I give students respect before demanding or requiring it. So in this way, I'm compliant first and then present my innovative ideas after that. Here, the journey from basic to complex is relatively a short-lived transition for me. My mind almost always operates in the complexity of systems, and to this point, an area of growth for me is moving from independent thoughts, ideas, and behaviors to systemic collaboration and change. The ability to transition more smoothly from an individual to a shared vision, mission, and objectives is improving for sure. And lastly, I am grateful that I have become more proficient at allowing time to pass before responding to challenging situations And in this way, I am continuing to evolve from a reactive leader to a proactive leader. Paying it forward. So the first person that I recommended to join ACSA either next year or in the years to follow was one of our new mentors that actually hasn't gotten started as a mentor. She's only attended my Mentor 101 training as she's preparing for this fall. But out of all of the new mentor teachers, and there's 23 of them that are joining our team this fall, Leslie stood out to me. She loves and cares about all students, and she listens as well as contributes in small groups and large group meetings. She's eager to learn, and she's ready to move up, and she's voiced that she really does, in fact, want to be an administrator and work on her credential. I would say her greatest quality is her disposition. She's just a really nice person, and such a great teacher, and I'm such a fun colleague and a collaborator, and so I'm really grateful that she's joined our program as a mentor. The second person that came to mind to refer to is a second-year mentor of ours. Her name is Megan. Also, she loves and cares about all students, and she leans into uncomfortable conversations with a resident teacher, and she has a strong and calm demeanor. She is just an amazing mentor and coach. Again, I'm so grateful to have gotten to know her and to have been able to see her in the classroom working with her resident teacher. She just will be an incredible administrator moving into the future. She said that she doesn't want to start next year, but she is thinking about administration maybe in the 24-25 school year. The last one is my partner TOSA coordinator, Jessica. And so she started with us last fall in actually late July, so almost the fall, so early August, the beginning of the school year. She was a mentor the year before, and she was a teacher in my district for six years prior to that. And so this is why I choose Jessica. She loves and cares about all students, and she takes risks to improve. She's very coachable, and she advocates for diversity, equity, inclusion at any opportunity that presents itself. And I would just say that for her, she just has an immense untapped potential. And so I work with her often. I validate her efforts, trying to build her confidence and her capacity. And now she's talking about wanting to be an assistant principal and moving into administration, possibly at an elementary school. And so I'm very excited for that. But again, she's thinking about years from now, not necessarily at present. So that pretty much wraps up my presentation. I just wanted to share my references. I got a lot of information, experiences really, from Alder Graduate School of Education is the partnering IHE, Institute of Higher Ed, that we work with. I pulled a lot of information, as I'm sure many of you did, from the CalEPA, their online website, and just all the resources that Ross shared with us. I also pull information from my school district, and so I have them listed here. And then, of course, Moving Leadership Standards into Everyday Work, our West Ed pamphlet. And then finally, Courageous Conversations About Race from Mr. Singleton. I'm very grateful, and thank you for walking this journey with me, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.